When Caleb Rourke bought the cabin, he made certain of one thing. There were no neighbors. The property sat at the edge of a forgotten stretch of forest in northern Montana, miles from the nearest town and far beyond the reach of cell towers. A narrow dirt road twisted through pine and fir for nearly 12 miles before opening into a small clearing. The cabin, built sometime in the 1970s, leaned slightly to one side, as if tired of standing. A small creek cut along the back of the property, its water clear and restless even in winter. Caleb had chosen it because it was empty. After 10 years working as a search and rescue pilot and losing his co-pilot in a crash during a storm, he found himself allergic to crowds, to noise, to the sound of helicopters slicing the sky. In the woods, there was only wind, water, and the steady rhythm of his own breath. For the first 3 months, the forest behaved exactly as it should. Deer moved cautiously through the clearing at dawn. A black bear passed through once, sniffed at the shed, and left. Coyotes yipped in the distance at night. The world felt balanced, predictable. Then the lights began. The first time Caleb saw one, he blamed exhaustion. He'd been repairing a fence post near the creek when he noticed a pale blue glow flicker between the trees across the water. It shimmered for a second, like moonlight hitting glass, and vanished. He stood still listening. Nothing but the creek. Probably swamp gas, he muttered to himself, though there were no swamps for miles. The second time, it lasted longer. It appeared higher up in the trees, about 15 feet above the ground. A thin vertical line of light, no thicker than a finger. It hummed faintly, not loud enough to be mechanical, more like a vibration he felt in his jaw. Caleb retrieved his rifle from the cabin and aimed toward the glow. The light went out. He kept the rifle raised for a full minute before lowering it. His heart pounded harder than it had during any rescue flight. It wasn't fear of a predator. It was something worse. He was being watched. That night, he locked every window and placed a chair under the doorknob. He felt foolish doing it. But when he lay in bed, staring at the wooden ceiling, the sensation returned. A steady, focused awareness pressing against him from outside. Morning came without incident. Caleb walked the perimeter of the property. No footprints. No broken branches. No signs of trespassers. He almost convinced himself he'd imagined it, until he found the mark on the tree. It was carved or burned into the bark of a tall pine near the creek. A perfect circle, 6 inches across, its edges smooth and darkened. The wood inside the circle looked untouched, pale and fresh, but no splinters lay on the ground. It hadn't been there before. Caleb pressed his fingers to it. The surface was warm. He stepped back slowly. "This isn't funny," he said aloud, though no one answered. He considered driving into town, reporting a vandal. But what would he say? Someone carved a perfect circle into a tree with surgical precision and left no trace? Instead, he set up motion-activated cameras around the clearing and along the creek. If something or someone was watching him, he would watch back. 3 nights passed with nothing unusual. On the 4th night, one of the cameras triggered at 2:17 a.m. Caleb jerked awake at the sound of the receiver buzzing on his nightstand. He grabbed it and checked the tiny screen. The image made his blood turn cold. There, at the edge of the clearing, stood a figure. Tall, thin, almost human in shape but wrong in its proportions. Its limbs were slightly elongated, its head smooth and narrow. Its skin appeared gray, but the camera's night vision cast everything in green. It stood between 2 trees, perfectly still, facing the cabin. Caleb's hands trembled as he reached for the rifle again. He opened the door slowly, stepping onto the porch. The forest was silent. He scanned the tree line. Nothing moved. The figure was gone. He checked the camera the next morning. The timestamp showed it standing there for exactly 43 seconds before it blurred and vanished. Not walking away. Not running. Vanished. Caleb replayed the footage again and again. The blur wasn't like a glitch. It was as if the air itself folded inward around the figure. That was the moment he stopped pretending this was human. He packed a bag that afternoon. Food, water, ammunition. He would leave in the morning. But that night, the knocking began. 3 soft taps against the cabin wall. He froze. Another 3 taps. This time on the opposite side of the house. He turned off the lights and waited in the darkness. Tap, tap, tap. It moved around the cabin, methodical and patient, as if mapping the structure. Caleb felt anger rising through the fear. He'd come here for solitude, for silence. He threw the door open and shouted into the forest. "What do you want?" The trees swayed gently. The moon hung low and silver. Then he saw it, not at the edge of the clearing this time. Closer, standing beside the creek, half hidden by shadow. It was taller than he'd realized, at least 7 feet. Its body was slender, almost fragile-looking. Its skin shimmered faintly, like oil underwater. 2 large, dark eyes reflected the moonlight. They weren't hostile. They were curious. Caleb lowered the rifle slightly. "You're not an animal," he said, his voice hoarse. "And you're not a person." The figure tilted its head. For a long moment, neither moved. Then, slowly, the being stepped forward into the moonlight. Its face had no nose in the human sense, only small slits. Its mouth was a thin line, but its eyes were expressive, shifting subtly as they studied him. It raised one elongated hand. Caleb's heart hammered. The air between them shimmered, and a sound filled his mind. Not through his ears, but inside his skull. "You are alone." He staggered backward, nearly dropping the rifle. "You're in my head." "You are alone," the voice repeated, softer now. Not a voice, exactly. A presence. "Yes," Caleb whispered. The being lowered its hand. "We observed." Confirmed. Observed what? It paused, as if searching for words. Isolation. Emotional damage. Survival capability. Caleb laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "You ran a background check on me?" The being stepped closer. The creek flowed quietly behind it. "You were selected." "Selected for what?" The answer came slowly. "Contact." Caleb's breath fogged in the cold air. "You're telling me you picked me because I live alone?" "Yes." "And what happens now?" The being's eyes shifted again, almost uncertain. "We learn." "Who's we?" It gestured upward. Caleb followed the motion, scanning the sky. He saw nothing but stars. "Orbiting vessel," the presence explained. His stomach dropped. "How many of you are there?" "Many." A surge of anger flared in him. "You've been watching me for months?" "Years." The word hit harder than any physical blow. "Since when?" "Before you came here." Caleb felt the world tilt. "You knew I would?" Probability modeling indicated high likelihood. He ran a hand through his hair. "This is insane." The being took another step forward, stopping just a few feet from him. Fear response elevated. "We do not intend harm. You broke into my life. You were already broken." The bluntness of it silenced him. Images flashed in his mind, memories not his own. Vast cities of crystalline structures under alien skies. Oceans of violet light. Beings like the one before him moving in coordinated patterns. "We study civilizations at their edges," it explained. "Yours approaches instability." Caleb swallowed. "You think we're going to destroy ourselves?" "High probability. And I'm supposed to help you understand that?" "You represent a subset. One who withdraws." one who survives trauma, one who chooses isolation rather than conflict. Caleb lowered the rifle completely. You think I'm a sample?
Yes.
He almost laughed again. Instead, he felt a strange calm settle over him. So what now? You keep watching? Take notes. The being's eyes dimmed slightly. Observation insufficient. Direct interaction required. A chill ran down his spine. Define interaction. The being extended its hand again, but this time slowly, deliberately. Shared experience. Caleb hesitated. Every survival instinct screamed at him to run, to drive until the forest ended and never return. But another part of him, lonely, exhausted, curious, held him in place. If I say no, we withdraw. Select another. The idea unsettled him more than he expected. You do this to someone else?
Yes.
He looked at the trees, at the cabin he'd repaired with his own hands. You picked me because I can handle it.
Correct.
Caleb exhaled slowly. Fine, he said. One condition. The being waited. You stop sneaking around. No more knocking on my walls. If we're doing this, we do it openly. A pause. Agreed. He reached out and took its hand. The contact was electric, not painful, but overwhelming. Light flooded his vision. His knees buckled as the world dissolved. He stood, floated, inside a vast chamber of translucent material. Curved walls pulsed with faint bioluminescence. Dozens of beings like the one from the forest observed from a distance. Caleb felt exposed, dissected without tools. Sensory integration commencing, the presence said. Memories spilled between them. His childhood. The crash. The guilt that gnawed at him every night. His decision to disappear into the woods. In return, he felt their perspective, an ancient species that had watched countless civilizations rise and fall. They had learned that interference often accelerated destruction. So they observed quietly, selecting individuals who existed at society's fringes. You think I represent humanity, he whispered into the shared space. You represent resilience. He saw flashes of Earth from orbit, storms intensifying, cities glowing like wounds in the dark. Your species balances on a threshold, they conveyed. Aggression and empathy in equal measure. And you want to know which wins? Yes. The connection deepened. He felt their fear, not of humans, but of repeating past mistakes. They had once uplifted a species prematurely, altering its trajectory. The result had been catastrophic. You don't want to interfere, Caleb realized. Correct. Then why contact me at all? A long silence rippled through the chamber. Because we are uncertain. The admission shocked him. You're afraid.
Yes.
The beings were not gods. They were observers haunted by their own history. Caleb felt something shift inside him. You've been watching the wrong thing, he said. Explain. You study us at our worst. Wars. Collapses. Violence. But you chose me because I walked away from all that.
Correct.
Then maybe that's your answer. The chamber dimmed slightly. Humanity isn't one thing, he continued. We're contradiction. We destroy. We create. We isolate. We connect. You're waiting to see if we tip one way or the other. But we're always both. The beings absorbed this. Duality creates unpredictability. Exactly. He felt their collective contemplation. Your perspective valuable. Good, he said faintly, because I'm not volunteering to be your lab rat forever. A ripple of what might have been amusement passed through them. Observation. Period concluding. The light intensified again, and the chamber dissolved. Caleb found himself back by the creek, still holding the being's hand. Dawn painted the sky in pale gold.
He released it slowly.
So that's it.
For now.
You're leaving? Orbital repositioning. Continued distant observation only. Relief and an unexpected pang of loss collided in his chest. You won't come back? The being studied him. If threshold crossed. That doesn't sound comforting.
It is not meant to be.
Caleb managed a thin smile. Figures. The being stepped backward toward the trees. You are no longer alone, it conveyed gently. Before he could respond, the air shimmered. The figure dissolved into light, streaking upward and vanishing among the fading stars. The forest fell silent. For a long time, Caleb stood there listening to the creek. The clearing felt different, not because something had changed physically, but because he had. He went inside, packed away the rifle, and removed the chair from under the doorknob. He opened every window, letting the morning air flood the cabin. They were still out there, somewhere above the planet, watching, but from a distance now. Weeks passed without lights or knocking. The cameras recorded only deer and wind. Caleb found himself driving into town more often. He spoke to the woman at the hardware store, helped a neighbor fix a collapsed barn roof. He even considered volunteering for the local fire department. Isolation had been his shield. Now it felt unnecessary. One night, months later, he stood in the clearing and looked up at the stars. You still watching? He asked quietly. The sky gave no answer. But he didn't feel observed anymore. Not in the invasive way. He felt acknowledged. He understood something he hadn't before. They hadn't chosen him because he was broken. They had chosen him because he endured. Humanity stood at its threshold, balanced between destruction and compassion. The aliens would continue to watch, uncertain, wary of interference. But Caleb had glimpsed their fear, their doubt. They weren't waiting for humans to prove themselves worthy of survival. They were hoping. A faint streak of light crossed the sky, a meteor, perhaps. Caleb smiled. The man in the woods still had no neighbors. Except, somewhere beyond sight, an entire civilization that had once watched from the trees and learned that the most unpredictable species in the galaxy might also be the most resilient. And for the first time since the crash, Caleb Rourke felt ready to rejoin the world he had tried so hard to escape.